Hi, I'm JP, and today I'd like to highlight an important doctrine that's taught in Matthew chapter 14. Now, in order to set the stage for this, we need to go back a couple of weeks and discuss a little bit about a doctrine that was taught in Matthew chapter 11. Now, one of my favorite quotes, and I've quoted this before, is from Joseph Smith, when he says, "By proving contraries, truth is made manifest." And there is a mild contrary being brought out in Matthew chapter 11. So if we go back to the very first part of Matthew chapter 11, we have this discussion about John the Baptist. And why are people going out to visit John the Baptist? Now Jesus, he says, this is verse 7, he asks a couple questions. He says, "What went ye out into the wilderness to see?" Like, why are you going out there? What do you expect to be seeing? A reed shaken with the wind? Now, to me, that phrase right there suggests that if you're bending to the wind, you're kind of flowing with the political current of the day. So someone who can be bent and molded into the popular ideals of the day. "But what came ye out to see?" This is verse 8. "A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in kings' houses." To me, I think Jesus is trying to get the people to think what their motives are for listening to John. The prophecy is there's supposed to be a deliverer. And now they're wondering, is this the person that's going to deliver our society out of oppression? They want somebody else to do the work. They want to be relieved of their burdens through somebody else. Okay. Now, at the very end of the chapter, we have the famous scripture, the powerful scripture that Jesus says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." He recognizes the burdens of the people. But here's the doctrine. "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest to your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Now, what is the yoke Christ is talking about? What is his yoke? What is Christ's burden? And I like to think of every week when we partake of the sacrament, in the sacrament prayer, we promise to take upon ourselves the name of Christ. And so what does that mean? Well, everybody probably has an idea. And just in summary, I would say that means to act as though Christ would act. And we look and see how Christ acts. He's always looking at others. Okay, so that's where the contrary is. The people, Christ is saying, are you here for yourself? Well, here's the contrary to that. The counterintuitive thought. You want your burdens lifted? You focus on somebody else's burdens. That's what my yoke is. I think of everybody else. So, Matthew 14. Here we are, again, talking about John the Baptist. And now there's a lot of stuff going on here with John the Baptist's story and King Herod and Herodias and all this. And, there's some interesting lessons in there too. But let's fast forward through that whole discussion. And let's get to the point where John the Baptist is beheaded. And after this happens, there are 4 examples of this doctrine of putting others first to lighten our burdens. There's 4 examples I'd like to highlight. 2 of them are from the scriptures, 2 are personal experiences. So let's go first to the very first one. Okay. John the Baptist. Jesus' cousin, we learn, he now gets the news that he has been beheaded. And in Matthew's account, he says that he decides to leave. Verse 13, when Jesus heard of it, this terrible news, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. Maybe he wants some time. That's how I read it. He wants some time to think. But the people see him leaving, and they run after him. And then verse 14, he says, and when Jesus saw a great multitude and was moved with compassion towards them and healed their sick. Mark says the same thing, a little bit different. Mark's account says, and Jesus, when he came out, saw much people and was moved with compassion towards them, because they were as sheep, not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. Okay, so that's first example. When Christ was shouldering this personal burden of grief, he looks outward. Now, I came across a story, and I'm not sure where I got it, but I have it attached into my scriptures, an experience from Elder Bednar. And I think this illustrates this point perfectly. While serving as a stake president, Elder Bednar learned of an automobile accident involving 3 teenage girls from his stake. A dear friend of the Bednars called Elder Bednar and asked if he could go to the hospital, meet the ambulance when it arrived, and assist in identifying 2 of the young women. The 3rd teen had been pronounced dead at the scene. Now, during the course of their telephone conversation, Elder Bednar gradually became aware of 2 important things. First, his friend's daughter was one of the young women involved in the accident. Second, the mother was using 2 telephone handsets simultaneously, one pressed to each of her ears. As the woman was talking to Elder Bednar, she was also talking to the nurse at a small rural hospital who had initially attended to the 3 accident victims. Quote, I then heard, this is Elder Bednar speaking, I then heard one of the most remarkable things I have ever heard in my life. I faintly heard the nurse telling this faithful mother and friend that the young women pronounced dead at the scene of the accident had been positively identified as her daughter. Without hesitation, and with a calm and most deliberate voice, our friend next said, President Bednar, we must get in contact with the 2 other mothers. We must let them know as much as we can about the condition of their daughters, and that they'll soon be admitted to the hospital. Close quote. Elder Bednar added, the Christ-like character of this devoted woman was manifest in her immediate and almost instinctive turning outward to attend to the needs of other suffering mothers. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Just like this mother did, her immediate compassion was outward. Now, more details from this experience as Christ is dealing with this agonizing news of his cousin and friend dying. He's teaching the people. There's a huge multitude. At least, we know 5,000 men, and that's not counting the wives and the children. An enormous congregation. Mark gives us an important detail. He says that the apostles went with Jesus when he left the city. And this is what Jesus asked the apostles to do. This is verse 31 of Mark chapter 6. And he said unto them, Come ye yourselves apart into the desert place, and rest for a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. So the apostles are They're tired. They're hungry. There's a lot going on. And that just adds to this example of taking upon us the yoke of what that means. This is a powerful teaching principle for the apostles. Okay, and we're familiar with the story. And now it's evening and it's time for dinner. And so the apostles come and say, yeah, it's time for dinner. Let's let the people go into the nearby village and they can buy some food. And that's not what Jesus had in mind. Because he asked them, how many loaves do you have? Go look. This is verse 38. And when they knew, they said, 5 and 2 fishes. But Master, this is our dinner. And we haven't eaten yet either. We're hungry. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, he looked up to heaven and blessed and brake the loaves and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And the 2 fishes divided he among them all. And they did eat and were filled. Take my yoke upon you. Remember others first. This last example of this principle being taught, it's a personal one with my wife. And my wife is just the sweetest person ever, and her talent is thinking of others. She was troubled several weeks ago about some news that she had received that her sister was facing some significant health challenges. And she was just so concerned about her and what to do and how to help that this was on her mind, and we went to the temple. And this was later, after speaking to her about it, this was the prayer in her heart during the experience in the temple. How can I help my sister? And at a point in the temple, when the endowment session is over and we're gathered together, she was in tears. And honey, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. I know everything is going to be okay with my sister. And even though I want to help her through this upcoming trial, I can't. It's not my place to do it. But I know everything's going to work out the right way. Now, the aftermath of this incredible spiritual experience for her, words just can't convey, and she's tried to express to me that words don't convey, but an absolute knowledge that Christ was aware of the situation and aware of my wife's desire has changed her life. It's been a pivotal moment. And at everything, she refers back to that experience all the time. And she says, I look at life so different now. Because she took upon her Christ's yoke and thought of others first. And I think that's the doctrine being taught. The doctrine of building the kingdom. Look to others first. And when we do, our burdens are made light. I know it's counterintuitive, but that's the step of faith. If we can just look outward. What if we lived in a world where everybody thought of each other's needs first? I know if you're listening, you're carrying a burden. What if somebody else takes this counsel to heart and is thinking of you? Your burden will be lifted. We're all in this together. This is the celestial order of things. This is what we're working towards. This is what Christ has taught and is teaching. May we move forward looking for the opportunities to serve one another. Thanks for listening.